Nobody could have predicted the impact this Polish refugee would have. Despite all of his trials and tribulations, he pursued his dreams and turned his passion into one of the world's most iconic watch manufacturers. Antoni Norbert de Patek was born in the Polish town of Piotrków. He grew up in testing times in 1812. He joined the Polish cavalry at the age of 16 and later fought in the Polish-Russian War. He was awarded the Virtuti Militari, Poland's highest military decoration, near the end of the war for acts of heroism. However, the Polish uprising was crushed later that year, and Antoni and his fellow soldiers were forced to relocate to Western Europe. He first settled in France. However, after the French government issued an unfavorable decree, he was forced to relocate once more, this time, to France. Antoni settled in Geneva, Switzerland, and was captivated by the city's watchmaking heritage. He sought the company of other immigrants as a refugee. It didn't take long for him to meet François Czapik, a Polish watchmaker of Czech descent. They traded watchmaking visions and dreams. On May 1, 1839, Patek Czapik and C were established. Antoni had no idea this would be the start of a long legacy, one that would exclude François while their company was successful. Antoni and François split up due to growing disagreements. Antoni was looking for a new partner again, and while visiting the French Industrial Exposition of 1844, it appeared that he had finally found that special person. Antoni met a gifted French watchmaker, Jean-Adrien Philippe, who was born in 1815 in La Bazoche, France, at the 1844 exposition. And, as the son of a watchmaker, he inherited the trade. He left his hometown at the age of 18 to hone his watchmaking skills, and in his pursuit of perfection, he traveled to London, where he worked for 3 years for a reputable watchmaker. After returning to France, he chose Versailles as his residence, but business was disappointing. He's not the type to give up on his dreams, so Jean-Adrien relocated to Paris. He was full of ideas and had a talent for tinkering with objects. He also developed a mechanism that allowed pocket watches to be wound without the use of a separate key. It was a watershed moment, and displaying his patented invention at the Paris Industrial Exposition changed his life forever. He not only received a gold medal, but he also caught Antoni's eye a year later. Antoni and François parted ways, and Jean joined the team as technical director. They founded a new company, Patek & C, with the third partner Vincent Goskowski, and renamed it PatekPhilippe C in 1851. While Antoni focused on developing an innovative marketing style, Jean was in charge of how the watches were manufactured. They hoped their watches would be among the most sought-after timepieces in the world, but would their different working styles mesh? Antoni preferred things to be perfect and adorned, whereas John was more interested in horology and improving the technologies beneath the surface. He didn't want to create merely opulent works of art that looked great. He wanted them to work well as well. The business prospered over the next 2 decades, but Antoni had long suffered from anemia, and he died in 1877. He was 65 at the time. Antoni's son, Leon, was only 20 years old at the time and refused to join the company. So he agreed to give up all rights in exchange for a yearly payment of 10,000 francs. PatekPhilippe built its reputation in the years that followed by winning gold medals and participating in numerous shows around the world. At the time, one of the most important relationships they had was with Gondola and La Barão in Rio de Janeiro. The partnership lasted nearly 50 years and saw PatekPhilippe through some difficult times. At a time when Europe was struggling and on the verge of war, Gondola and Lara sold nearly 1/3 of all PatekPhilippe watches produced. In fact, sales were so impressive that the term PC became synonymous with the word watch in Brazil. Unfortunately, Jean only lived to see 2 decades of fruitful collaboration before passing away in 1892. 2 years earlier, he had already handed over his position to his youngest son, Joseph-Emile Philippe. After Joseph's death, his son Adrian became the last person with a Patek or Philippe family name to run the company, exacerbating the situation. Due to the global economic crisis, the company was in financial trouble by 1932. They needed a buyer, and they needed one right away. The 1929 Wall Street crash, also known as Black Tuesday, was one of the most devastating stock market crashes in US history. It marked the start of the 12-year Great Depression, which affected the entire world. Patek Philippe and Key were not spared, and they lost money because many of their customers failed to pay them on time. The directors knew they had to take drastic measures to prevent a competitor from taking over. As a result, they hired two brothers, Charles and John Stern. The Stern brothers were not ordinary people. Carderon's Stern Frere, where they made high-quality dials, was already in operation. Patek Philippe wanted to collaborate with them because they saw a great business opportunity and wanted to preserve the Swiss watchmaking tradition. In 1932, the Stern brothers not only assisted Patek Philippe, but also purchased a stake in the company. Even though they didn't feel ready to run it on their own, they bought it outright the following year. They hired respected watchmaker and horological specialist, John Pfister, as the firm's CEO and got right to work. Charles Stern was appointed chairman of the board of directors in 1934. And his son, Henri, joined the firm to help him. A third-generation Stern family member, however, had begun to work his way up the ladder as well. Henri's son Philippe was born in 1938. He spent a portion of his childhood in the United States. He also knew a lot about how watches were made in Geneva because of his family history, while also being aware of modern trends long before they were adopted in Europe. Despite his interest in Patek Philippe, he first chose to work in the IT field. When he finally arrived in Geneva in 1966, he had to become acquainted with all of the operations. What Philippe Stern learned in the computer world began to manifest itself in the watch industry as well. Patek Philippe, like Rolex and all the other Swiss watchmakers, would soon face an unexpected crisis because technology seemed to be changing faster and more drastically all the time. Between 1970 and 1980, there was a so-called quartz crisis. Quartz watches were battery-powered rather than mechanical, they were more precise and less expensive to manufacture. While the first Japanese watches were quite expensive, prices began to fall dramatically. People worldwide switched from mechanical watches to quartz watches in the 1970s, decimating the Swiss watch industry. Philippe was appointed CEO in 1977, right in the middle of it. He knew that in order for classic mechanical watches to have a chance, they had to be a truly high-end product. And he quickly began recruiting engineers to transform Patek Philippe. The commitment to artisans would be maintained, but the watches would now be made using detailed blueprints. This would not only improve the quality of the parts and ensure that they could be made again and again, but it would also protect and guarantee Philippe's ability to repair all of its own watches. Philippe's core value had always been creativity, and they never thought that sticking to tradition meant not trying new things. "We will do everything that a hand can do better than a machine," as Philippe Stern once stated. But when a machine can assist a person in doing their job, we will not simply do what has always been done. Philippe took over the presidency from Henri Stern in 1993. The following year, Philippe's son, Thierry, joined the company as a member of the family's fourth generation. Patek Philippe is now widely regarded as one of the world's most prestigious watchmaking brands. People recognize the brand as a leading manufacturer of fine mechanical timepieces. Its history dates back almost 2 centuries. Furthermore, despite the fact that many watch brands claim to be older, the majority of them ceased operations and later underwent complete foreign ownership. At a later time, Patek Philippe, on the other hand, has been striving since its inception and has always been privately owned. Patek Philippe has never been known for its flashy marketing. It does not seek endorsements from famous footballers and rappers in the same way that other brands do, and while they can boast that one of their clients was Queen Victoria, they have generally avoided celebrity endorsements. But that doesn't mean celebrities, from Jay-Z to Ed Sheeran, avoid them as well. However, they would probably argue that the word own should be taken in context. After all, their famous slogan is "You never actually own a Patek Philippe," You merely look after it for the next generation, and it appears that the same can be said about their business. Patek Philippe takes pride in being the last independently owned watchmaker in Geneva. Which of the following facts was your favorite in this video? Let us know in the comments. Also, don't forget to turn on the notification bell and subscribe for more.